So welcome everybody to yet again another episode of Radio ISR.
Welcome.
Yeah, we had some fun the last time, didn't we? Talking all about the launch meetings. Well, this time round we're going to make it a little bit more universal because we're going to be really talking about things that are general to all of us. So all the lads in the Far East and the Middle East, will definitely feel a lot more included in this version of the podcast, just like our usual ones, So what I want to do is just remind everybody we have a special guest again, and he was so successful the last time round, he got another invite.
Welcome back.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me back.
I can't believe you made the drive all the way down here twice.
Honestly.
Oh my God.
You get a raise.
Now he doesn't feel like a second wheel now to Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm the new number one.
Exactly.
You are the new number one, So, as I promised in the last episode we did this, we would talk about the disc. And it was this episode, as I said, is all about understanding yourself and others. And that's kind of the theme that we're doing with it. So hopefully now you're sitting there in front of you, you've got your Excel or it's printed off and you're looking at your graph that was on page 2 of that Excel sheet that you filled in. And remember on the bottom, the values should be 24. If you don't have it out in front of you right now, then pause this and then jump on, fill out the Excel, because I guarantee you they'll make it very interesting if you've done a little bit of homework with it. It's a bit like, when you were younger and, used to watch those TV programs, the kids ones, and they'd say, make sure you have your scissors and your color paper and your glue. And I never did, and then they'd be making a thing in front of you going, damn, I wish I had everything ready it was,
Make sure you get your RSM to help you with the scissors, ISRs.
So without further ado, we're going to talk about this thing, And as I said the last time round on it, this is our psychometric test that we use for all ISRs, but it's not just for selling. This is across the board. It's an industry standard. So many different companies use it when they're recruiting. Could be recruiting doctors or nurses or lawyers and all these different people that are out there. So it really shows your aptitude, about yourself. And that's really what it's all about, So what I want to do is basically put this up on screen so you can see it right now and then talk to you about it. And we'll try and, piece this together as we can, So the DISC is what they call a personal concept. And there's pretty much 2 concepts. If you look on this page 2, basically the part with the graph on it, there's a private concept and a projected concept. One's called least like you, which is very confusing. And then the other one is most like you. And the least like you concept, believe it or not, is the one that's really most like you. That's my opinion on it. And what that is basically under pressure, what's your real self? While the projected concept is the one you try to project to other people. So it may not be your true self. And while under pressure, then of course you revert back to the least concept. So that's the difference on the graph. As you can see here, you can see basically this is what the graphs look like. So hopefully you got a pen and paper right now and you take the pen out and you can fill this in. But as you can see, there's the most and the least. And we're going to focus on the least, which is the one on the right-hand side. So as you can see, there's an average line, right? And that average line tells your values basically. So are you above average on drive or below average on drive? And that's what that middle line does basically, So the first column to be filling in is the one your D. So wherever the D is, whether it's above average, below average, what you want to do is take your pen and then basically draw that over to the I then, okay? And then from the I, draw that over to the S, and then from the S, draw that line over to the C. And you should have a graph in front of you right now. So that's what it should look like. So what I want to do is talk about, there is many different personal concepts. There are some that we look for as for a sales job, but there are different ones depending on the jobs that are out there. So as you can see, there is in the top left-hand corner column, there's one called dominance, okay? And they're the kind of graphs that basically go for people that we would call high D, high in the dominance area. Then on the other side, you can see is the influence, and they're the people that be more, more influential and try to influence people. And as you can see, they got certain graphs, motivator, persuader, and the promoter. And then down below, we've got then the high C people, which is compliance. And then they have an adapter graph for them, a creator, a perfectionist. And then the high S people, the steadiness people. And then you can see they've got the investigator, the advisor, and the steadiness then, So they're all the different ones. And depending on what industry you are, you would look for a different graph on there. We personally try to recruit basically the people that we call the organizer or the motivator. And generally they have what we call a high D or high I. So you can take that middle line, average line is in the middle, and their graphs are either would be above average on the drive and above average on the I. And depending which way it is, some of them who are what we call high D, what that means their dominance is higher than their I, we call them the organizer. And then in the other graph, the high I basically is their I is higher than the D, and we would call them the motivator. But what they have in common, if you look at the bottom of the graph, is that they got a very, very low S line and a small, a below average for this C. That's what they have in common. So people of this, for example, don't need a lot of security. So yes, working in a, this type of ISR job where everything is commission only will have no problem doing that. There's other people, for example, they have very, very high S, and the prospect of working on commission only would scare them, and they just would never come into our industry, especially when, we're taking ISRs from the foreign countries, moving them from their home country, putting them into a foreign country, again, that's a big fear element, that is. So that's very important for us that we looking on the graph, we're looking for people with very, very low S, and this little C, we call it the corporate hook. Generally, they're under when it comes to compliance, but they've got a little bit of compliance in them, they have, So that's the people. So what does it all mean? Okay, so I talk about this high D, high I, and everything else on there. So the first thing it means is that we take the high D, we call that dominance. And as it says there on the screen, this person places emphasis on accomplishing results, the bottom line, and basically they're about confidence, So their behaviors is they like to see the big picture, they can be very blunt, they accept challenges, and they get straight to the point. So that's the high D. And hopefully there's a lot of people out there right now looking at their graph and saying, yep, me, that's me. I'm a high D, that's for sure, Then we have the high I. And this person is basically gets things done through influence. So they place emphasis on influencing and persuading others, and an openness and relationships, And their behaviors is they're very enthusiastic, they're very optimistic. They like to collaborate, and they dislike being ignored. That's kind of what they are when they're high I, Then we move on to the high S people, the steadiness, and this person places emphasis on cooperation, sincerity, and dependability. Their behaviors, they don't like to be rushed. They're very calm. They have a calm approach to things, and they like supportive action as well. And then finally, we move on to the people who maybe have the high C, which is the conscientious people out there. And these people place emphasis on quality, accuracy, expertise, and competency. And their behaviors are they enjoy independence, objective reasoning, they want the detail, and they fear being wrong. So there you go. So as you can see here on the screen, you've got that dominance, and they're the three ones: the organizer, the dictator, and the entrepreneur was the three graphs on there. And their keyword is all about basically overcome, conquer, challenge. They love that, They're real self-starters, yeah. So that's one of the big things that they are, They're usually direct, positive, and straightforward, and they say what they think. But they can sometimes be very, very blunt. So with a high D person, sometimes can come across to other people as being very, very blunt because of the way they are, They fight hard for what they believe in, that's something that's nice about them. They like variety, and they will find themselves basically, they will tend to lose interest in the job if there isn't enough variety and enough challenge inside it. So that's for sure, And they're prone to making job changes earlier on in their careers until they find the challenge that they need. They're very self-sufficient. They're demanding of themselves, and they are discontented and dissatisfied with the status quo. They hate that, And one of the things with the high drive people, I think I should mention to you, is, they, as I said to you, they do tend to, be dominate. They do tend to be very challenging, but, they can get into an argument with somebody, and in 5 minutes later, totally forgot. They don't hold the grudge, For them, it's just water off a duck's back. So a lot of times they can be very blunt, but they don't really mean it. That's just their behavior, that is, So then we move on to the high I, which is the influencers, and, they're really out there to persuade and sell. That's their big thing. And one of their keywords is recognition, So where your high D person will probably say they have a tendency where they really want to make money, and, that's very important to them. The high I person will say, nice suit, nice car, nice position. That's also very, very important for them. So recognition would be one of their hot buttons that would be, They're very outgoing, they're persuasive, and they're gregarious. They are, They meet strangers easily, no problem. They're people you can put in a bar, and even though they'll be all by themselves, can just walk up to a stranger and start chatting to people. So they just have no problem with that when it comes into. They have an inherent trust, and they're willing to accept people, but that can work against them as well, because they can also misjudge people. But, they're easily met. They love name dropping, and they sell themselves very well. They're very friendly competitors and optimistic managers. So your high D person is a fierce, like loves a bit of competition, but very fierce about it. High I person loves a bit of competition, but likes it where it's fair, if you know what I mean. Enjoys it, but it's got to be with a bit of banter, And they're normally very fashionable dressers, as I mentioned earlier on, you know. They join organizations for prestige and personal recognition. So that's a high I person, you know. And again, even though you're looking at your graph right now and you might see a D and your I might be less, but if it's above average, these two still, you know, are still part of you, you know, or, you know, so that's something always to keep in mind, you know. So then we talk about the high S people. And so we probably wouldn't have, as far as a sales job, have a lot of people that are high S for that very reason. As I said to you, you know, to be a fear of working on commission would be maybe taking them someone out of their environment as well and putting them in a foreign country. But there's still things we should look at because we're talking about understanding ourselves and others. So these people basically, for them, it's all about, you know, support and appreciation, you know, and they're very, very predictable and they like predictability in their jobs as well, you know. They're amiable, easygoing and relaxed, and they're very warm-hearted and home-loving people, you know. They tend to be undemonstrative and controlled. They conceal their feelings from others and tend to be grudge holders. So again, that high D person comes in, shouts at them, says something, and this person will sit there and then forever will hold a grudge against them, you know. So again, it might be water off a duck's back for a high D person, but for a person who has high S, they won't forget, you know. So again, very important because even though we might be dealing with similar people with other salespeople, but we're interacting with our customers. We're interacting, of course, with, you know, people in processing, and maybe they're a little bit different from us as well, you know. So we move on to the high C people, and the high C people are the adapters, they're the creators, they're perfectionists, you know. And, you know, something that's very, very important with them is for protection. So again, probably something that's not so important for a high I or high D person, but for them, protection is very important, you know. They proceed in a very orderly way, you know. They like things to be very neat and detailed, you know. And that's kind of what they're key to them. They prefer to adapt to situations and they avoid conflict and antagonism. So again, that high D person doesn't mind a bit of conflict. These people will avoid, you know, that, you know, that's just the way they are and what they're built, you know. So there are the kind of differences on there. So one of the things is, okay, we're familiar with ourselves and there's probably a lot of people out there right now talking about if they're a high D or a high I. What about yourself? What do you think, Ewan? What are you?
I don't know, to be honest. I thought maybe a mix of probably not D over I anyway. Yeah. Probably more I towards S more than anything else, I would say. I think when I last did the test, I didn't exactly fit the mold of a salesperson that we're actually looking for, which is interesting. You
were the advisor, you know. But we found from a few other people when I did this, you know, in a couple of different regions, that we had a few advisors out there. So maybe it's not the typical mold, but certainly you've been successful with, and maybe something we're missing a point on, you know. What about yourself, Carlos? Do you remember when you did the test, what you were?
Yeah, whenever I took the test, I mean, to your advice, there was strange enough, it was pretty even across the board, which there wasn't like a big flux between, you know, one category or the other. But
you're a robot.
Were we high I or high D? Do you remember what you
had? It was high I.
High I. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So no big surprises there. What about yourself, Dave?
I was I over D.
I over D, yeah.
But it's funny, you know, not to go off on a tangent, but it was we did this. I remember doing an ongoing professional education course, and this was really interesting because, you know, with the company they were teaching different aspects of the of life, you know, different personality traits that you have, you know. But anyway, there was people in the room. There was one of the girls was the head of admin, and she was the head of admin, and her chart was the exact opposite of our one, because basically it was you know, her skill levels, what she needed to be was high C and very organised and everything, you know, whereas the salesman's skill levels had to be a different thing entirely.
So selling to the high D, and this is one of the things we want to look at with this presentation was, okay, it's great that we understand ourselves a little bit, but think about our customers coming through the door. Maybe they're a little bit different. Maybe some of our customers are high S or high C, you know, so that's what I think we should get a little bit more value out of this, not just understanding ourselves, but more importantly, the people around us, you know. So I want to talk about basically selling to the high D person on there, you know. So that's that dominant person. And just to recap that, basically, their behaviors is they see the big picture, they can be blunt, they accept challenges, and they get straight to the point. So think about this, okay? The dominant customer with a dominant style are fast-paced and outspoken, as well as questioning and skeptical. They prioritize action, results, and competency, you know? So think about that, Dave. You know, I'm sure we've all had people that are high D coming through our door and stuff like that. And what's the first thing you notice about them?
You mean characteristic-wise or body language? You might find that they kind of lean over the desk, talk to you, and kind of let you know that they're controlling this conversation. You might find that when you shake their hand, that they turn the hand over a little bit, and basically let you know, listen, I'm going to tell you exactly what I want, and you can either provide it to me or you can't. And if you're not used to it, if you're not a bit thick-skinned, you might be a little bit sensitive and say, especially maybe some of the higher enlisted guys who are used to giving orders, and that's what their personality is, that they give orders and people jump. So if they come in and give you an order, you better be receptive to it and say, okay, we can help, or we can't,
So yeah, you're right. Absolutely. A dominant handshake, that's for sure. They come in and, and of course they're the people who don't want to sit down, the first thing you do, if you say sit down, no, I'll be standing on my feet all day long, so, and they also want to lean in and, can be seen as quite aggressive. They can be, they want to be the boss. Yeah, how infuriating is that? You're trying to basically make your presentation and they just want to cut to the chase. Because again, a high D person basically just wants the facts. They want, that sort of facts and figures. Yet we need to go through our spiel and do basically the blueprinting that we feel is important, and they just want to cut to the chase. How much is that car or whatever? And it can be very difficult. And it can be even more difficult when you get two high D people together in the office together. I mean, it's like, two bulls in a china shop, basically, So that's something, so they, like I said, they want to hear the bottom line. They like a no-nonsense approach. They're unlikely to hand over details. Have you had that before? Yeah. Absolutely, And of course, people like that need to be reassured that they're still in control, because that's very important to them. And more importantly, never challenge their beliefs as well. So as I said, there's people like us that there are a lot of our salespeople are high D as well. So, that's something that they really got to then change their style a little bit, not get annoyed about this, recognize themselves and others and say, okay, this person doesn't want the whole spiel. How do I get my point across, but at the same time deliver the things in the way that this high D person wants, because they'll just find it very, very trivial, as you go through trying to make conversation. They're going, this is disingenuous, if you know what I mean, trying to make, the basic conversation, And then we take selling to the high I basically person, which is the high influencers, and you think this would be an easy job, because guess what? High I people are really friendly and easy going, right? So you would think that they probably have this down pat, because that's a lot of us have this inside them. But as it says here, these customers are with the influence styles are fast paced, they're outspoken, as well as accepting and warm, but however, the customer may become distracted and have little interest in the details of your proposal, because they just want to be your friend. Characteristics of a high I is they're friendly, social, and they want to be liked. So that would be pretty straightforward. That would be, they're great for referrals and long-lasting relationships. They need to be listened to. They love recognition. They love to be given credit for their intelligence. They like to be dealt with on a personal level. However, you could see them as time-consuming. If you're a high D person, if you want a friend buy a dog, the high D person wants to get through it. Let's go through, let's get all the points, get everything out of the way. And then that person is coming back to talk about, their vehicle or, their Harley or whatever, could see them as time consuming, and that gets on to the next point. Dangerous when disappointed. So that a high I person does not like to be ignored. So, they've gone from being your best friend, and the next thing they can be dangerous when they're disappointed. And, I revert back to the days when I sold a lot of Harley Davidsons, and I always noticed that with Harley Davidson customers, they're very easy, very friendly, outgoing, they love, of course, hanging out in groups. That's what hop chapters are all about. And everything's going swimmingly well. And then one day you have to give them a bit of bad news that their bike is going to be late and they're going to have to wait 5 days for it to be prepped. And sometimes it could be the end of the world for them. And then they go from having this brilliant relationship to not a great relationship. And I'm sure everybody's had their story on there. So that's always the watch with the high I person, is not to disappoint them. That's for sure, Now we talk about the high S person, the steadiness, And as I said earlier on, they enjoy independence. They're very objective. They want the detail and they fear being wrong, So a high S person that comes through the door, how would you spot them? They customers who fall under steadiness are accepting and warm, as well as cautious and reflective, This customer may need time to reflect on proposals and might be uncomfortable with a quick decision. So how would you know them? Well, first of all, they're the people who basically want to know the difference between you and a stateside dealer. Why should I give you money as opposed to somebody else? That would be one of their things, They need to know about the program. So instead of just, blasé and expecting that, these people want the detail. They want you to take the time out and, and talk about the program and how the program is beneficial to them, So they don't like no pressure sales. That's for sure, You'd hear the term a lot, just looking. That would be a big one for them. I need to think about it. You'd hear that a lot as well, And they want to be assured that they're leaving here today with all the right information, the most important, and this is probably their DBM, you know, like when you think about DBM on a car, but their DBM is all about not wanting to make a bad decision. So for them, that's kind of ingrained inside them, you know, so they don't want to make a bad decision. So they certainly don't want to be rushed. And it's something that's very, very important, and sometimes we find it hard to understand. You know, them making a right decision is more important than some impending doom savings. So, you know, when you're trying to say, well, you know, tomorrow the money match is finished, and, you know, if you don't lock into it today, then you're going to lose all that savings. Well, for them, that reeks of, you know, desperateness, you know, and that you're trying to rush them into something. So sometimes if you have a high, you know, S person, you'll probably just tiptoe through it. And even if there is some impending doom, you probably just need to ease off on it, because it's just not something that's really important for them. Making it the correct decision is more important than anything else, you know. So I think that's interesting, because that's a little bit different than most of us, you know, in our, what we are normally, if we're I over D or D over I, you know. And then selling to the high C person, this is also very interesting, because the high C person is about compliance, you know, and they put an emphasis on quality, accuracy, expertise, and competency. So that's very important for them, you know. So, you know, so those people, for example, they prioritize competency, quality, and dependability, yeah? They prefer to stick to the facts and are likely to engage in small talks or are swayed by, you know, decision on emotion and stuff like that, you know? So these people are well researched. So in my day, before there was iPads, you know, people used to come into me and they'd have all their printouts already, because they'd done a lot of research beforehand to come in and see me, you know. So these people they're just as well researched nowadays. They're just, you know, it's probably on their phone as opposed to, you know, a piece of paper that's under their arm, you know. They're very neat, tidy, and organized. So a lot of our salespeople are high D, some of them are high I, but with a lot of high D guys can be pretty messy. They just are. It's not important to them, you know, to have a nice work environment, and certainly their desk and themselves. It's more about getting things done for them, you know. But when a high C person comes in the door and they see that the desk is messy and your desktop's just full of, you know, PDFs and folders and files and everything else on them, for them, that's a bit of a mad scientist. And that's kind of one of those things, before you start to speak, you're already in their bad book, so to speak, you know. So for them, it's really important that you're neat and tidy and you're organized, you know. They want the detail. So again, you have the patience, you know, you got to be able to take your time to go through the detail and make sure they have everything they need. They put a big emphasis on a professional and knowledgeable salesperson. So again, you know, slim slamming and not being able to know all the facts and figures is going to turn them off, because they've put a lot of research into this, you know. They're more logical, as opposed to be swayed by emotion, you know, so that's their thing. So they want to know the reasons why, you know, they want to go through, why is there a T1? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to bring the car here? So it's very important that you have to be able to explain the reasons why, because that's just their hot button for them, you know. And they like the selling process to be well laid out. So, you know, using all the templates that we have for this is the instructions to go down to vehicle registration, these are the instructions to get customs clearance, very important for them to have that all well written out for them, you know. And again, so that's a checklist. And they unfortunately have a tendency to overthink, they have, you know. So that's kind of where they are, you know. So I thought that was really interesting, because what it's telling us is that, you know, it's not one, you know, price, one size fits all. You know, that's what it's telling us. And I just thought, the difficult part of this is adopting your approach, because if you're a high D, how do you suddenly become a high S to match that high S person? So what do you think, Dave? Do you think that's any credence to what you've seen yourself in sales over the years?
Yeah, I think you could end up that you could start to give a presentation to someone who might be high D, and you're really going into the nitty gritty of our program, and you're just basically making them more and more angry because they just want a quick price or whatever, you know, and vice versa. You know, someone turns around and they want to know the terms and conditions, and they want you to take the time to go through it with them, and you're trying to be as you know, abrupt as possible to let them know, look, I know how the process works. You don't need to. Well, guess what? They want to know how the process works, and they want to know where the customs office is. So it's really important to know what kind of customer you're dealing with when they come in the door, to make sure that you give them the service they want from you, as opposed to, you know, it's not a one size fits all, as you said earlier. So it's really to see it in action on a daily basis. You can really make someone your best friend, or they'll think you're unprofessional.
Yoon, as an advisor, which was your natural graph on there, could you see yourself being flexible? I mean, I'm sure you probably, the high D one probably be the one that would probably you notice the most, right?
Yeah, I think there's warning signs there. You can kind of sometimes make a quick judgment based on how they act when they first walk in. Like you were saying earlier, high D person's not going to want to sit down. They're going to stand over the desk. They're going to ask for, you know, quick price on that. And once you see that things early on, you can get used to, you know, adapting to that situation. So particularly particularly with high D people, they're actually probably more the easier people to deal with. High I just keep chatting, and it can sometimes be a more drawn out process than you would like. So I think if you always have yourself switched on and you're looking out for those kind of warning signs, it's a lot easier to deal with.
I think it's certainly an interesting way to look at it, I think. What about yourself, Carlos?
There as well too. I mean, going back to with all of the training that we've taken as well, I mean, like with the improv, and things of the sort, you really have to be flexible. And the most important key as well, coming to things like that, is just listening. So it's really easy for us to, to jump off the deep end, with really not knowing, what type of customer we have in front of us, so being flexible and listening definitely helps out with the disc as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Showing that basically versatility, which is difficult to do because we have a natural self and we tend to go to that what it is. But being a chameleon, being a true salesperson, you have to start adapting yourself, which I thought was very interesting. So Dave, I think we're going to start looking over to yourself right now, wasn't it? And I think we were going to look at motivation and getting the most out of you. I think was going to be your subject for today.
Yeah, I think, at the moment we're nearly finished the first quarter of the year. So it's important to regroup and take a look at yourself and your performance and decide right now whether you're happy with your performance thus far, whether the goal that you set at the start of the year is achievable, which it should definitely still be. We're only 3 months into the year now. And if not, how can you actually change your behavior right now? And I think one of the things that you can do is on a daily basis is start strong. So I think some of the motivating factors that I find that really help are to have really positive motivational speeches in your ears first thing in the morning. And it's very easy to do. If your car has a USB plug-in, you can download some motivational speeches to listen to on the way in the car. And, if you're looking at the guy in the office beside you and he's doing a better job than you, is it just down to hard work, or is there an element of, positivity that you're lacking in the morning, that maybe you're a bit more lethargic and maybe you're finding it difficult? Because let's face it, if you have a deployment or you have, some, things that are beyond your control, it's very difficult to stay positive. So it's very important to have a kickstart in the morning that you can actually give yourself some energy to start the day really strong. So what I'm going to do is at the bottom of the video here, we're going to give some links, and I'm just going to supply a couple of videos, a couple of sound bites, if you like, that people can download onto a thumb drive. And you can stick it in your car or stick it in your iPhone and listen to it when you're working out or whatever. And, I'd be interested in comments and shares. I'd be interested in people coming back and saying if they have some positive links and stuff that they can share with us as well, that we can constantly link in our next episodes as well. But I find they really, really help to kickstart your day. So I'm gonna link 5 of them down below that people can actually download and use themselves. And hopefully that's a good foundation for many more of them as well.
And you, and what about yourself? Do you use anything like that at all? Any motivational stuff?
Not so much motivational speeches, but certain songs in particular.
Yeah, there you go.
That get me kind of amped up in the morning. I definitely do that. I know when I used to work with Ben in Vicenza, he's big on that as well. So I used to not really think much of it. I used to think it was kind of a bit cheesy when he first started putting it on, but it does really kind of, you can see it motivate him throughout the day, and it really keeps you going.
And it's not for everybody, like I said, we saw that earlier on. Not everybody's exactly the same, but there's got to be something. I find music, for example, definitely, I find that time in my car when I'm driving along and I got that moment in time, then one of the things I like to do is the imagination. Imagine what it's going to be like, 12 months from now. And that for me, being able to put that in my imagination was allowed me then to then put the parts that was needed to get to that point then, Carlos?
And pretty much, music, there as well. And weird as it may sound, there's maybe a lot of it out of context. Family is something that's really important to me, and it motivates me, So knowing where, your goals are. If you take a look back, the kids are happy, the wife is happy, happy wife, happy life, have you. And there's looking at what you've done, in the past, there as well, that actually, get you to the point you're at now.
Carlos, that moves us on to your segment, and I just want to put that up there on the screen. and that would be NPS, which is Net Promoter Score. Can you tell us about that?
NPS, being that now we're in March, I think this is a very good time coming on the end of the first quarter to start taking a really good look at measuring, right? What work we've done so far and the way forward to actually push us out through the end of the year. Now, your Net Promoter Score measures customer experience and predicts business growth. This proven metric transforms the business world and now provides the core measurement for customer experience management programs around the world. Now, this along with our CSI scores, that we did, and this is the NPS is a good measurement tool to where now we can gauge, right, to actually see what we need to change and what we can continue to do in our business successfully. Now, with the NPS calculation, really easy to calculate there as well. Now, there's going to be 3 groups of providers in the NPS system. All right, you have your promoters, and you have passives, and then you have your detractors. All right, now from a score from 0 to 10, all right, scores from 9 to 10 are your promoters. Your promoters are loyal enthusiasts who will keep buying and refer others, fueling the growth of your business. All right, those are our key players. Then you have your passives. The passives are going to score in between 7 or an 8, and with your passive scores, those are satisfied but unenthusiastic customers, which basically means that, yes, they bought from you, but they probably could have went somewhere else.
Yeah, they could swing either way, basically.
They could swing either way. All right, and then you have your detractors. All right, your detractors are going to score you from a 0 to a 6. All right, those are your unhappy customers.
So if you had to refer a friend which was 6 or below, they'd be detractors then, basically.
Absolutely. There you go. All right, so your unhappy customers who can damage your brand and impede growth through negative word of mouth. All right. Now, subtracting the percentage of the detractors from the percentage of the promoters yields your Net Promoter Score, which can range from a low of negative 100 up to 100.
Gotcha.
All right. Now, once you do the calculations and then going back, every business and we as ISRs, what have you, we need to go back in to now measure this to then now reincorporate this inside our business spectrum. Now you come into with the customer experience management, which the NPS system definitely helps out quite a bit. Your NPS is going to be a key measure of your customers' overall perceptions of your brand. NPS is the leading indicator for the growth. All right, so you want to make sure you stay along with that for your customer experience management there as well. Now, once you go in and do your calculation, a good tool to now, you have a measurement. You need to go back and reevaluate. All right, most companies, they ask the question, all right, why? All right, did you give us, that vote? All right, there has to be a reason as far as your promoters. All right, what did you like? All right, and they're going to tell you what type of service they like about your business or what have you. So now to now continue to do those things and build on those. And the same thing as well. Ask the detractors. All right, obviously you have the reasons for saying voting us, giving us that. You mind to explain why. All right, so now we have those areas.
I think they call that closing the loop.
Closing the loop. All right, so as a business in what we do day in and day out to improve those CSI scores, because a lot of ISRs, we see maybe, the 3.5s or the 4.5s, or even, with the 4.8s. And, a lot of times the guys are, saying, wait a minute, why didn't I get a 5? What have you? So this is going to be a very good way that you can incorporate to then better those CSI scores.
So I think if you think about customer service and, we're used to our scoring system, and the scoring system we have marks us out of 5. So, if the average ISR in this company gets a 4.6 out of 5, which is pretty impressive, it's like 90%, it's what way you look at it. But what does vary is that they refer a friend. So it's possible you could have a customer delivers a car, gives you a 4.6 out of 5, says, yeah, you're pretty good, but then wouldn't refer the business. So that's the key thing here, if you know what I mean, because, if they're not going to refer people to you, or their friend or family member or whatever, then that also says something about it, So you might be a nice guy and all, but I don't think your service is that great, So that's something that we should look at,
I think it's probably important to tell the lads where they can find the score as well, for anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah, it's right now at the moment, and we're trying to get it available to everybody, but right now at the moment it's available in Power BI, and all the RSMs have the login and the ability to be able to see it, and then should be able to share it with everybody out there. And that brings me on to a good point here, Dave, which I wanted to talk about, which is basically a demonstration I have here of the scores that we have here in Europe. And I have it up here in front of me, so hopefully you see it and it's working here, But one of the things before we jump into that and I show the scores on it, there's really no point in having a metric unless we're going to do something about it. So I think that's one of the key things, if we know why we got distractors and we know why we got promoters, let's find out from the promoters what we're doing right. You close that loop, and then the distractors is the same thing, But I've got here Europe PX and got Europe AX, and I don't have all the other scores around the world on, but I'm just going to generalize and just give you an idea on there. And this is to be good or bad. That's all the way it is, So we take Europe PX as a whole on it. There was 781 surveys last year. Okay, so it's an impressive amount of surveys. It's a nice spread, and the overall score was a excellent, which is pretty good. So as far as that score goes, it was an excellent. That's probably an 8 or a 9 out of 10 would be the average that would refer a friend, basically, And then, as you said, it's not just that, it's also that percentage of distractors minus promoters and then multiply by 100 that comes up with the score. So altogether, there was 21 world-class people in for ISRs on the PX in Europe. There was 3 were excellent, 8 were above average, so all very, very good. And there was 11 below average on there. But overall, rated basically excellent over there, which I think is pretty impressive. Interestingly enough, when we look at the AX side of the house, which is, a very fundamental part of our business, we didn't score so well on the AX. And there are probably many different reasons for it, but we didn't. We had 286 surveys, Overall score was below average, so that's warts and all. That's just the way it is, There was 4 by world class. There was 5 by excellent. There was 4 above average. But unfortunately, there was 10 that were below average, So again, it's one of those things. It's hard to put a finger on it. But what do you think, Carlos? What do you think the reasons why, from an AX perspective, why maybe wouldn't have scored so high?
I mean, you probably have to take a look at the demographics, the type of customer that's purchasing from the AX program.
Yeah.
You're looking at high-end metal, premium automobiles. So a lot of times when those customers come in, they're looking for a particular type of service. They're looking for a premium sales experience, and there what have you. So if they don't feel that they've had the red carpet, rolled out to them, all the little, the T's crossed, the I's dotted, what have you. So those customers can tend to expect more.
We miss a lead time, that doesn't help either, and you're right. I think there's an element in there. I think, there's a higher expectation, and we've got to raise our game then, So, and again, what's interesting with those surveys is that a lot of the guys are scoring well on individuals. So they're professionals and they're a techier, what they did, all that seems to be fine, But again, it's that refer a friend just seems to be a lot lower. So it's definitely something we got to work on as an organization.
And I feel as well with closing that loop, with the detractors, asking those questions to the detractors, why?
We need to find that out.
We need that. I think that MPS could actually help us, put our finger on the pulse to find out, what our customers are really expecting from us, to actually be able to refer a friend or a family member or a colleague.
Yeah, we really need to dig that out, What about yourself, Dave? MPS?
Yeah, I think, it's really interesting to have someone who's the full product, the full package, and everybody loves them, but then you see a lower refer a friend. And at the end of the day, the only reason we do these analytics is because we want to grow the business,
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it would be very, very, in depth to be able to sit down with each ISR and say, listen, everything is going fantastic. You're doing a great presentation. You're cleaning cars. Your handover is fantastic. Yeah. But for some reason, this guy wouldn't refer a friend to you. Why? Let's, give a call here and find out, is there something that you did wrong? Could it be down to, the disc? Could it be down to, there's a number of reasons that it could have been. But again, at the end of the day, we just want to put our finger exactly what's on it. So it'd be really interesting, really genuinely interesting to find out.
You had a world-class score, so, and on a lot of surveys. So you must be doing something right on there, So is that something you talk about with your customers? Refer a friend, or this is what you want to do. You want to earn their business, or how is it?
Absolutely, I think for apparently getting a world-class score, I actually didn't get anywhere near as much referrals as I would have liked last year. I think once you get established in a location, it becomes a little bit easier. Yeah. You see the same people, every day in the PX walking by, so you can build that relationship, and then you can kind of. I feel like I'm getting a bit more back from it now. So many people obviously on base know me now that they know that obviously if they do come by, they're going to get a great experience. So.
Yeah, you say you may not got a lot of referrals from it, but our customers talk more about organizations, and we all do. Amazon did me right or whatever. We don't really get the nitty gritty. So even though we see ourselves as individuals, and your office has done very, very well. So, I think there's a lot more goodwill. So you mightn't generally see that, but it's, oh yeah, those guys will take care of you, or I had, whatever. And it's more, that's the kind of stamp that you're looking for. It may not be, hey, by the way, Sergeant Jones is coming in 5 minutes later, You should be looking at maybe the wealth that it's creating.
We focus on that as well, actually, out of the office, not just referral coming back to me, but the overall picture of the organization. Are people thinking of the actual brand itself as, like you're saying, trustworthy, and they want to buy from us? Because obviously in Vicenza you have so much competition. There's used car guys everywhere. There's other new car programs they can go to. But I think making the overall opinion of the PX office a lot better has been one of the focuses that me and Mark have had, and I think we've done a pretty good job.
We should all be thinking exactly the same. There's no doubt about it.
As well. I mean, I think going back, with a lot of ISRs, and I asked myself, I'll raise my hand. Whenever we're getting ready to do a presentation, we do the meet and greet. One question that I failed to ask my customers is, how did you find out about us?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they could have been referred.
Yeah.
But, not a direct referral
Absolutely.
to where they're annotating that on surveys or things of the sort.
This is like a stamp of approval of the business.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just to tick the box. It's a bit like what we see Google ads or on Facebook, and, your location page is a 4.6 out of 5. We talked about this before in previous podcasts. They're just stamps of approval. Okay, great. They meet the minimum I'm looking for. And then you move on to the next part. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think it's important as well. There's no doubt about it, I wanted to do is, before we close this out, I just wanted to do the final shout outs for this month, So I've got a couple of them here. I've got Niall O'Shaughnessy wants to say congrats to all his team and just say, look, we're in a great position right now and let's max out our early bird, From everybody here at Radio ISR, we just want to shout out to all our listeners and say thanks again for listening, and watching. We really do appreciate it. We do, I said more and more people are watching all the time, and it's something that's really, really heartfelt. It is, that we enjoy that, and we
appreciate your feedback as well.
Yeah, for sure, And I'm going to put Dave on the spot now, and then see maybe he can say something to his good fellas out there as well.
Good fellas. Happy St. Paddy's Day. I hope we have a great Paddy's Day show, and I hope we smash it. And be God be Jesus. And happy Paddy's Day.
All right. So there you go. Anyway, there you go. We got to the end of this. It's an end of another podcast for us. And again, as always, we hope you enjoyed it. And, please, any feedback, send it to us. And again, a special thanks to you and being our special guest and being here today. We really do appreciate it, taking your time out of the office, and for Carlos as well, who's so as well, so do really appreciate it. And, we hope to see you on the next one.
Thanks, bye.
Ciao to you.